to the podcast. I'm Jeff Magnuson. In today's episode, we're going to talk about salary and the different topics that have come up over the last few weeks. This is such an important topic, and there's so many nuances and questions around this topic that it's important that I address them as they come up, because if one or two people have these questions, I know more of you have them. This type of information is incredibly valuable for you at every point along the way. Companies are good at negotiating salaries, usually, because they do it very often. But as job seekers, chances are you have not had to do it very often, if at all, ever. So the more information that you have, the better you will be. As I mentioned in episode 4, salary negotiations begin right with the job description, because most companies choose not to put in the salary range. That's a negotiating tactic because they want you to speak first. I'm not going to go over that again because you can just go back and listen to that very relevant episode whenever you want. Another thing that I didn't cover in that particular episode is putting a salary range in the application. If you're applying online, then chances are they're going to ask you, what's your desired salary? What's your salary range? You want to be careful here because you still don't really know anything about this company other than what you read in the job description. And as I've talked about before, the job descriptions are not always very accurate or well thought out. So what you think you might be walking into and the range that you're giving based on what you read may not be the case. One relevant example could be if the position is remote, but when you speak with somebody on the phone, you realize that the remote position will become partially remote or not remote at all. You'll be expected to go into the office every day. That changes things because what if that commute is 45 minutes each way? And maybe that wasn't factored into your original salary range that you provided in the application. This is what I'm talking about. It's really important to get a handle on more than just the job application before you start stating a salary range. If you see that, when you see that on these online applications, just put willing to negotiate, leave it blank if it's not required, put 000, and then whenever you get a chance to write something in your own words in the job application, just say, please note, I am willing to negotiate a salary for this position. Something to that effect, just to let them know that you recognize that they asked that question. You're choosing not to answer it right now, but you will bring it up at the appropriate time. We are still in the middle of a global pandemic that has, really crippled the world economy, and especially here in the United States as well, where many industries have just been completely shut down, like hospitality and restaurants and so on. The ripple effects of this have been felt far and wide, even in industries that you might not be thinking of or positions that you're not really thinking of, where people have had to take pay cuts. So they're lucky that maybe they weren't laid off or furloughed or let go or whatever, but they've had to take a 10% pay reduction because the company is going through this difficult time with everybody else. One of the things that came up from somebody was, will this pay cut affect my future salary? And the answer is no. And it's the same reason that I talked about in episode 4, I believe, with salaries, is that you're never going to talk about your salary history or your current salary with anybody outside of your close family ever again. In many states and other areas, that question has finally become illegal for companies to ask. But even in places where it's not illegal, it's irrelevant and it's nobody's business. They want to know that answer, that information, because if by some chance you are underpaid, which a lot of people are, they can offer you a little bit more than what you're currently making, even though they may have budgeted way more for that role and you deserve way more based on the market. If you're taking a pay cut now, let's say you were making 100 just for an even number, but now you're making 90 and you know that you were already underpaid and the next role is going to be, you're going to be looking between 120 and 130. That's all you have to tell them is 120 or 130 when the time is right. So let's talk about when the time is right to bring this up, assuming the company is not bringing it up. If you have an in-person conversation, usually with HR or the hiring manager as the first call, whether it's over the telephone or Skype or Zoom, and the salary number has still not come up, then you have two choices to make. Number one, if they say, we'd love to interview you again, or we'd like for you to interview with the larger team, you can say, I'm excited to meet the team, but before we do that, I'd like to at least make sure that we're on the same page in terms of salary. I'm looking for a base salary between 120 and 130. Will that work for you? And then you just see what they say. Don't say you're willing to negotiate until they speak. Or if you haven't interviewed in a long time, I'm a big proponent of going on interviews because they are great practice. I work with people with interview prep all the time, but there is no substitute for actually interviewing in the moment with the company. If it's done over Zoom or Skype, you can have these interviews much more efficiently, then that's something else to consider. So you can at least practice interviewing, even if salary has not come up. Everybody's different. Everybody's situation and time is different, but both of those are acceptable options that you can consider. When it comes to negotiating a salary, always assume that a salary is negotiable. Companies are very savvy. They may give you an offer and they are going to make it sound like it's final, but unless they explicitly say that this offer's non-negotiable, this is our final offer, assume you can negotiate. If we come back to our example, if you said 120, 130 and they come back with 115, obviously read everything like I talked about in that other episode. See, health benefits, vacation time, all that, bonus potential, everything, and see what you're willing to take. And you could say, look, I thank you for the offer. I'm excited to get started. I was looking more for 120 and 130. What can we do to make up the difference? Maybe meet in the middle at 125. Again, you see what they say. And alternatively, somebody posed a question to me, what if I'm given one offer and they say this is our final offer, this is our only offer, this is non-negotiable, language like that? Then you treat that as a final offer. So let's say, going back to our example again, they come back and they offer you 115 and you're really not happy with it. You're not going to accept 115. Then what you can say is, thank you very much for the offer. After further consideration, I have to decline this offer because of the low base salary. I would be willing to accept it if it was 125. I wish you and the team the best. Something along those lines, just stating your final salary. And then you see what they say, because then you'll really see if it was a final offer or not, or if they were just trying to strong arm you into taking a lower salary by not allowing you, quote, allowing you to negotiate. And finally, with negotiations, always remember that you always have the last word as a candidate, because that word can be no, and you can walk away. That's really important. That's a powerful position when companies are looking to hire talent and they like you and you get all the way to the salary offer stage. That means that they are willing to invest and commit money to bring you on board, but you still have the final word in that negotiation. If you should decline an offer, please know that that is 100% acceptable. It happens all the time, but absolutely let the company know. You don't have to give them reasons. In the example before, I mentioned the base salary because it's one last attempt to try to get them to come up, but you don't have to do that. You could certainly say, thank you very much for the offer. After reviewing, I have decided to decline this offer. I wish you and the team the best. You don't have to give your reasons. You don't have to go into anything. Just simply let them know as a professional courtesy. And the last topic I want to bring up is somebody who came to me and said she's been at the same company for about 15 years and she knows she's been underpaid for a really long time. And she's at the point where she's just sick of it. And she really wants to try to have a step up in salary, get caught up and paid a fair market value. How does she go about doing this? I wanted to put this into this episode because it's very similar to a salary negotiation in that you want to be prepared for that meeting. She's obviously already an employee. She has an established relationship with her manager, but you want to have a one-on-one discussion with this person, and you want to come prepared. You can't just come in and say, I'm underpaid, I want to be paid more, even though that is the truth. You want to come armed with information and remind your manager what you've done over the years to either save money, implement new systems, drive efficiencies, help with sales, whatever it was that has made improvements over the year to the company to justify them paying you more. And you can talk about, I've done research because there's now so much more information out there that similar roles at similar companies are paying their employees this, and I'm making this. And I would really like to be paid a fair market level. And then you see what happens. The idea is to approach these meetings thoughtfully, professionally, and respectfully. And you get to the point. There's no whining. There's no begging. You just want to be confident without going overboard. And you can practice this either by yourself or with a friend or a spouse or whomever, just to practice how you're going to deliver your case, if you will, to earn more money. That's in your control. What's not in your control is what they do. Maybe they give you a little, maybe they give you a lot, maybe they give you nothing. That is a different conversation. That's something that you will then decide, okay, well, maybe this company isn't right for me any longer. And you switch gears and you update your resume and LinkedIn and start to maybe look for something else without giving the impression that you're looking for something else. Obviously, you don't want them to think, we declined her raise, so now she's probably going to quit. You don't want to give off that energy, okay? You have to be savvy yourself here and keep your chin up. It's obviously disappointing if that's the news you get, but you always have the option to leave and move on to something else. And that's it for this episode. If you have any questions or comments, please drop me a line at jeffmagnusonconsulting.com. If you're enjoying these episodes, please leave a comment or a review on Apple. That would be awesome. I'll see you at the next episode.